Hi, I'm Mike, owner of the In-Groove in Phoenix, Arizona. We're a brick and mortar retail record store, and today I'm going to do a review of the best sounding pressings of Led Zeppelin's second album. I'm going to start with some of the lesser quality sounding records. Although I gotta say, this was one of the videos that I enjoyed doing the most. You know, listening to Led Zeppelin II 40 times was not a big undertaking. Some of these albums that I've done reviews on, you know, it's a slog getting through copy after copy after copy. This is such an amazing album that didn't really bother me. But I'm gonna start with this, which is the new current in-print digital version. It is okay. It's nice and clean sounding vinyl. It's nothing special though. I'm not a huge fan of digitally sourced records. This is a pretty avoidable record in my opinion. I mean, it's not fantastic. All right. This is actually, you know, for as much money as this goes for, this is a pretty awful sounding record. Led Zeppelin II, done by Mobile Fidelity Sound Labs, the original master recording. Pressed on JVC super vinyl, you know, really nice and quiet and clean and immaculate pressing. But God, this is such an anemic rock and roll record. They have sucked all the life out of this. It's, you know, this would have been good mastering choices for a smooth jazz, maybe a Kenny G record. But for Led Zeppelin II, it was not the best mastering choices. Not a really fun record to listen to in this, you know, with that choice of mastering. Same thing with the Japanese pressings. You know, pretty anemic sounding records. This is a record that, you know, like a great rock and roll record, it has to have force and it has to have drive. And these are really just laid back and real, you know, again, it's almost like a smooth sound, which is not what you want to hear. They're really obnoxious. That Mobile Fidelity record, these Japanese records are actually probably a little worse. Really crappy, mellow, not good choices. Avoid these. They're not the cheapest thing in the world and they're really not any good. This is the little bit later American pressing. Still uses the first pressing catalog number, the SD 8236. This is a George Piros cut, which I find to be a little bit better than some of the other pressings within the little later of the early era pressings, 4-digit product code pressings. Pretty solid copy, you know, sounding. Now this is, you know, this has got more bite, this has more crunch, this is more of what you've heard on the radio. This is a good sounding record, but not really the best, but pretty solid. These are various UK Plum pressings. Different lacquer cuts, A2, B2, the rec label copy here. It's okay. A little bit overrated. You know, everybody goes nuts about UK pressings as far as Led Zeppelin goes. But when it comes to Led Zeppelin II, they're kind of a waste of money. Different little later, I think this is an A5, B5 lacquer cut. Again, pretty anemic sounding. Better, you know, real in line with the George Piros cut Led Zeppelin II. You know, it's a solid sounding record, but it's not the best. Not the worst though either. Another Plum, different matrix. Now this is a little bit later. This is when the maybe the late 70s. This is the K series UK pressing. Not bad, quieter vinyl than the Plum copies. Again, okay, similar in sound to the Plum, maybe just a smidge worse, but you're splitting hairs at that point. Again, for the price that they go for, especially here in the US, not really worth it. This is another Piros copy. Okay, sounding. Now this is the classic reissue that was done by Bernie Grundman. This is the 200 gram. This is a really solid sounding record. I'm a big fan of this. Really, it's still got the bite and the punch of a good record, a good rock record. Really quiet sounding vinyl. It's an audiophile record, but it doesn't have that audiophile, smoothed out sound that the MFSL versions have, and that the MFSL version and the Japanese copy has. This is a really solid copy. Clean. You know, Bernie Grundman cut this. It's a solid pressing. A little bit better would be the 45 RPM version. Now this, unfortunately, you can only get in the classic road case, which goes for insane money, maybe $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 now. Some records that you listen to in this box set are definitive. Since I've gone and done, you know, gone back and listened to the 45 RPMs, some of these are just unbelievably good. But when it comes to Led Zeppelin II, this would probably still be maybe the second best sounding version of this record out there. Still not the best. They're all single-sided, so it's 4 discs. So I'll crack one of these out and let's just see what it looks like. So you're single-sided. You know, monstrous pain to play. You've got 2 songs on this side, and you've got nothing. You know, this is a blank back. Problem with these is everybody that I know that owns one of these road cases, all the records are dish warped. It's just the nature of these, the way they were manufactured. Probably by not having any grooves on the B side of the record, every single one of these things is dish warped. But my particular turntable has a clamp and it flattens these down perfectly. So not a big issue for me, but a real solid sounding copy, but nothing compares to this. And the word is out on this. Everybody knows. They go for a ridiculous ton of money. And this is only half of one. This is the German cut half RL. Robert Ludwig, who cut the original Led Zeppelin II in the United States. Some of the metal parts were sent over to Germany. Really, really good, but a problem is it's only half really good because they only use the Robert Ludwig mastering on one side and not the other. So what you really want to find is the US first issue cut by Robert Ludwig. You'll see RL in the dead wax. You preferably want to find copies that are RL SS. They're cut a little bit hotter. I have a copy here that was, it's actually a Columbia Pittman. Yeah, there it is. Columbia Pittman copy. No SS in the dead wax, but it has the RL on both sides. It's what they call a double RL. Just not cut as hot. Still killer sounding record, but it's not as loud. It doesn't have the bite that the other copies do. So, you know, there's a lot of variations, different pressing plants, and there's minor sound differences between them all. But I gotta say, when it comes to this album, what you're looking for is the cleanest copy possible because they're all chewed. Almost every version of this record I've ever seen is VG or worse. I get into the shop and I've had in my hand maybe 500 of these over the course of the last 10 years. I've never had a near mint copy. None of these are near mint copies. VG Plus has been the best that I've ever been able to get into the store or find in the wild. If you get a VG Plus copy though, you're doing really good because this record is cut extremely hot and loud, and any pops or clicks or surface noise is heavily, heavily buried in the mix. So, you know, you've got Monarch pressings that are pretty desirable. The Preswell pressings are pretty desirable. You know, those are probably the better of the various Ludwigs. But again, you're really splitting hairs. Ideally, you want to find the cleanest copy possible, regardless of where it was pressed. But I mean, I've seen on eBay really clean near mint copies go for $800, $900, $1,000, which is a crazy amount of money. But they're rare. And when I'm telling you I've seen 500 copies and none of them have been near mint, that's not an exaggeration. They were all VG Plus or worse. No near mint copies. It's amazing how many of these copies are out there because there's a lot. I get a ton of them into the store, maybe 2 a month, but they're all chewed up. In the store now, I've got a shelf of maybe 40 of them, and they're all VG minus or worse, scratched up. You know, I'll put them online. They'll still go for 80, 90, 100 bucks with skips in them. It's amazing, but the record sounds amazing. It is unbelievably, it is like the pinnacle of what a rock and roll record is supposed to sound like. You know, at that very, very first track, Whole Lotta Love, when Robert yells unique, cool, and I mean, it just shouts out the speakers. I mean, it's unbelievable. There's so many 3D swirling effects that are on that record that you can hear. They're so pronounced on the Ludwig copy. You don't really hear that on the other versions. I mean, it's the record to own, the copy to own. You know, the Cisco, or excuse me, the Classic Records 200 gram goes for, you know, 150 bucks. I'd rather listen to a VG copy Ludwig than a nice, clean, you know, Classic Records mint. It's just, it's that much better. It's unbelievably good. I can't stress it enough. And again, I've got, this is kind of the assortment of the best Ludwigs that I had in my collection, condition-wise. You know, there's a Preswell. There's a Monarch. Another Monarch. This happens to be the cleanest copy I own, VG Plus, maybe a strong VG Plus. So that's my go-to copy when I listen to this record. When I listen to this record, it is that particular copy right there. This is actually the later 70s with the 5-digit code on it. Pretty avoidable there. The later pressings, you know, you get them for 20 bucks. They're okay, but you really want the Ludwig copy. This is the one to own. Again, mine's a Monarch copy. Get away with any of them. You're fine. Find the cleanest one possible, and if you find a near mint record and you want to send one to me, I'd love you to do that. So again, the top 3 choices would probably be, hands down, the Ludwig clean copy. Number 2 would be the Classic 45 RPM, only slightly better than the Classic 200 gram record. So probably I'll add a 4th record in here that's pretty solid. Probably that US George Piros. That would probably be my 4th choice. And if you're looking for just a cheap copy, that's going to be your $25 to $50 copy if in clean shape. That would be your cheapest clean copy. You know, this is really unobtainium when it comes to, because you got to buy the whole box. But this is one of the greatest records ever recorded. You should own the Robert Ludwig copy if you can afford it. But, all right, guys, you can check us out on our website at www.theingroove.com. Don't forget to subscribe to my videos. If there's anything you'd like us to cover, any records you want us to do, go ahead and leave them in the comments. And until next time.